I can't be the only one to express amazement at the response of almost all of the media to the continuing exercise by Donald Trump of his legal rights when the call goes out for Trump to concede. It's 21 days since the election. When George W. Bush won in the year 2000, that's George Bush Jr., it took 37 days. We read about the office of the president-elect. There is no such thing under the Constitution as a president-elect. Now, a different form of vandalism. Having tried to deny Trump for 4 years, they now want to deny him his legal rights. Just imagine if you contested an election, Pennsylvania. You were beaten by 69,000 votes, but the Democrats, your opponents, didn't allow the inspection of 683,000 mail-in ballots before they were entered into the vote. And, of course, the argument is there's no evidence. Well, the Trump team have evidence, but even if they presented it, it wouldn't be reported. And many of the affidavits can't be presented publicly because people are afraid of being threatened by left-wing extremists. And anyway, what evidence exists is there for presentation to the courts, not trial by the media. As Jim wrote to me, quote, "Where did this idea develop that evidence had to be produced to the media on demand?" I understand they've got hundreds of affidavits. A signed affidavit under threat of perjury is evidence to be tested in court. As Mark Levin observed on Fox News this morning, and I quote him, "Let's talk about evidence. Notice how they all covered up all the mounds of evidence implicating the Biden family in corruption and dealings with foreign companies just prior to the election. The laptop, the emails, the texts, the witnesses, etc. You know evidence, but they censored it. Rudy Giuliani produced an affidavit from a Democrat election worker in Michigan who testified she was instructed to change the dates on absentee ballots to reflect that they came in before Election Day, an affidavit. But the media will tell you that there's no evidence of election fraud. Sidney Powell said in response to a reporter asking, "Is the country on the verge of an electoral breakdown?" To which she replied, "I don't want another election in this country. I don't care if it's for a local dog catcher using a Dominion machine or Smartmatic software." Well, would Giuliani just make it up? What he said at the press conference last Thursday, and I quote, "This is not an individual idea of 10 or 12 Democrat bosses. This is a plan. You'd have to be a fool not to realise it. They do the same thing in exactly the same way in 10 big Democrat-controlled counties, in most cases crooked cities." And he said if people don't believe him, they should look up how many Democrat officials have gone to jail in the past 20 to 50 years. Mayor Giuliani said, quote, "They picked the places where they could get away with it." He said such places have political judges who summarily dismiss the testimony of Republicans. They pick places where they can get a sheriff who refuses to endorse a court order. He also said the censorship that's going on in this country right now by big tech and big media is almost as dangerous as the election fraud we are revealing. Maybe, he said, just as dangerous. But all we read, of course, is that the Trump cases have been lost. Yet another one lost. Yet another setback. Well, that's not the big show in town. They didn't expect to win the district court cases. It'll be the courts of appeal and the Supreme Court who decide the outcome. I suppose that Trump demonisers would seek to demonise Jeanine Pirro, a former New York State judge, prosecutor and politician. But she now hosts Fox News Channel's Justice with Judge Jeanine. This was Judge Jeanine Pirro on Sunday.
For 4 years, we listened to unsupported allegations of a conspiracy by a foreign government to interfere with our presidential election, that Russia stole the election of 2016, implanting their Russian asset, Donald Trump, as president of the United States. For 4 years, we were told Trump was a Putin puppet, a Russian asset, that we must do everything we can to get rid of him and save America. And now, just over 2 weeks, the president's lawyers come forward alleging an organized criminal enterprise, a conspiracy by Democrats, especially in cities controlled and corrupted by Democrats. The president's lawyers alleging a company called Dominion, which they say started in Venezuela with Cuban money and with the assistance of Smartmatic software, a backdoor is capable of flipping votes. And the president's lawyers alleging that American votes in a presidential election are actually counted in a foreign country. These are serious allegations. But the media has no interest in any of this. But you and I do, as we should, because 73 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. Now, the president's lawyers offered evidence by way of affidavits, which I told you last Saturday, as a judge from a legal perspective, are sworn statements of individuals signed under penalty of perjury, meaning they know they face the penalty of prosecution and 5 years if they lie. These sworn statements are factual allegations, are part of virtually every lawsuit. It's how you start a case. The president's lawyers have indicated that they have 250 such affidavits under oath, people ready to testify, people ready to face the hate that the left has inflicted upon all of us from day one.
Well, then Judge Jeanine Pirro outlined the case for Trump.
On Thursday, Rudy Giuliani made clear that Democrat cities were targeted by crooked Democrats who stole votes. He described election night numbers going in the favor of Donald Trump, but by the next morning, absurd increases in Biden votes. Curious, so many mail-in ballots for Biden with no down-ticket vote. In Atlanta, a sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury. The affiant of Fulton County Observer says she observed absentee and mail-in ballots being counted. Many of the boxes of ballots had voted for 100% Biden, 0 Trump. The ballots appeared to be perfectly filled out as if they were pre-printed, with the presidential candidate selected. Another declarant, who holds dual doctorates in economics and engineering from Stanford, states that Georgia uses Dominion voting systems, which has a history of technical glitches, and in Atlanta, these software glitches could have affected thousands of absentee mail-in ballots. On November 4, Biden received a batch of 134,886 votes at 6:30 in the morning. In Wisconsin, the day after the election, Biden received a dump of 143,000 votes at 3:42 a.m. The upshot in the graph is stunning. It suggests there was a pause and then a filling in the needed votes to win. How do we know this? He knew it through affidavits, those sworn statements where you can actually go to jail if you don't tell the truth. 2 individuals and 1 Dominion employee signed affidavit. And yet there is a hue and cry by the media to see these affidavits. Many of them are already on file in lawsuits across the country. But these witnesses, many of them are seeking protection and therefore their safety until the time that it is necessary for them to testify. Does anyone really believe that they are exaggerating when they say they are in fear? I ask you. What is the problem in seeking to confirm that this election had no irregularities? Why have we found thousands of ballots after the election was called? Why were observers not allowed to watch, which was their legal right? And additionally, to make sure that everything was done correctly? Why was there an overnight popping of the vote tabulation that cannot be explained for Biden? The issue now is, are there enough trend lines to overturn an election in an individual state? Can a court throw out thousands of votes because of instances of fraud or overvoting? How can we assess whether the provisional ballots are to be counted if a voter shows up to vote and is told he or she has already voted by mail? How do we handle that? How do we handle the judges in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania, the Secretary of State in Georgia, who unilaterally changed the election law without the appropriate legislative authority? Should these states be able to certify when there is a constitutional issue that clearly only the legislature can change the election rules? How is it that Biden underperformed Hillary in every city except the 4 that Rudy accused them of, the 4 cities that Rudy accused of being corrupt Democrat strongholds? These are the questions that aren't going away. For the sake of our republic, we have an obligation to get honest and truthful answers. In fact, demand them. Well, there you are. Make of that what you will.
That's Janine Pirro, a former New York state judge and prosecutor. If you were Trump, wouldn't you be going right to the Supreme Court? The Biden apologists need to take a Bex and a good lie down. What do you think? Email me, alan@skynews.com.au, or the text line 0414 000 848.